and reveals the simple truth that the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have not been straight with the British people. Time and again, we Conservatives warned Labour would tax, borrow and spend far beyond what they were telling the country.
Keir Starmer is out to rob you dry of all your money with the most vindictive taxes.
The Chancellor rewriting her own CV. Concert tickets, football tickets, suits, dresses and glasses, all handed to Labour MPs by shady donors.
While Starmer and his cronies make the nation miserable, they are being exposed to be frauds.
This is part of the problem when you have, or a symptom of the fact that you have a Labour cabinet, almost none of whom have ever had serious jobs where they were responsible for second and third order effects, let alone run companies.
Rishi Sunak warned us of Starmerism and Labour's sinister agenda, and now we're facing the consequences.
A cabinet resignation. The loss of a Downing Street Chief of Staff. The Chancellor rewriting her own CV. Concert tickets, football tickets, suits, dresses and glasses, all handed to Labour MPs by shady donors. One major donor being given a number 10 pass only for it to be rescinded days later. Another plum donor given a plum civil service role in the Treasury.
Starmer proved himself to be the biggest hypocrite in the nation, and Labour is on the brink of collapse.
Indeed, by some measures, the largest tax hikes in the history of the country in any one budget. And now, the abandonment of the government's central mission for growth. Yes, a government reset just 21 weeks into power. It's what Keir Starmer is calling his plan for change. Instead, it's clear this may well be a change of plan.
This nation has not seen a leader this incompetent in ages, and we're paying a huge price for it.
Yes, Labour's growth mission was the answer to every question they were asked on how they would fund various policy commitments. We'll supercharge growth, they said. We'll grow faster than any country in the G7. Well, this week, that language has been dropped. Why? Clearly the government doesn't believe it will achieve the highest growth in the G7.
Starmer shamelessly lied to the public while promising growth and pretending to have a plan.
Now, even if you're to believe the government's spin of £22 billion in unfunded commitments, the so-called black hole, well, the OPR said that was more like £9 billion, and the government changed the debt rule in the budget to allow for extra borrowing, which would have covered that in its entirety. Well, despite all that, tax rises in the budget raised £40 billion.
The disgusting levels of dishonesty that Starmer is using to steal £40 billion more is appalling.
Now, if filling in this so-called black hole was the concern of the government, well then, why did it need these tax rises? No, this £40 billion cash grab more than dwarfs any inflated black hole calculation. And where did it all go? Well, largely to the NHS.
Even after the £40 billion cash grab, Starmer and his useless gang still can't fix the economy.
Given the state of the NHS and the fact that the NHS budget has risen by almost £50 billion adjusted for inflation since 2010. Well, a cynic might think that at the time the Labour Party secretly agreed. At the budget, Rachel Reeves poured not £2 billion in the manifesto, not that £2 billion that I just read out and delineated. No, instead it was £23 billion more into the NHS.
This greedy lot just keeps coming back for more, and they're wasting the public finances in the worst way possible.
And we wanted to make sure that everything that was in our manifesto, every pledge in it, was fully costed and fully funded.
Hang on.
A promise that we could keep
Isn't
and
that-
the country could afford.
isn't that a
and every single one of those
misdirection?
pledges will be delivered.
Isn't that a bait and switch? You didn't put this £25 billion of NHS spending in your manifesto because you didn't want to put the national insurance hike in your manifesto.
Misdirection and dishonesty are the only things Labour is good at, but they won't be getting away with it anymore.
You've put a lot of money into the NHS. That's a legitimate political choice. That's a legitimate thing to do. Left-wing governments tend to tax more and spend more. My question is, why didn't you say that in your manifesto? Doesn't it smack of dishonesty that you chose to avoid this spending pledge in your manifesto just so you could avoid that tax rise in your manifesto?
Make no mistake, they made the choice to ruin the economy and lied about it. There's no defense for this shameless behavior. If you think wasting your money on the NHS was bad, wait till you find out what else Starmer has been doing with it.
The British taxpayer is being used as a cash cow to pay the benefits for people who can't speak English. You're also paying for foreign criminals to languish in our prisons before they're released, and then you'll probably end up paying their benefits as well. Reform MP Rupert Lowe claims that there are nearly 870,000 calls made to the Department for Work and Pensions last year, made by people who required an interpreter. He says that if you can't speak English, you shouldn't get benefits.
Society is soft on illegal immigrants and hard on our pockets. Starmer and his gang have managed to almost crash the British economy within only a few months of being in power. The stats are horrifying as the economists are fearing a recession. Things might get much worse and you'll have a hard time believing the figures. Loophole after loophole, this government is using you as a mule to fund illegal immigrants, take care of the prisoners, and then shower them with benefits.
We know that £726 million was spent on refugee households through universal credit last year. And it raises the question, what's the overall figure for the amount of money that we spend in benefits on all foreign nationals who can't speak English? Why are we paying for that? We're not just paying for legal migrants or refugees who can't communicate properly. It's criminals as well.
That might look like a huge figure, and it is, but compared to what Starmer is spending on the whole thing, it's nothing. Refugees are settled and taken care of, completely free of cost, and then Starmer wonders why immigration rates are through the roof. It's as if he's trying to prove how tone-deaf and useless he is. In Starmer's fantasy land, rewarding criminals instead of serving justice is a bigger priority. No wonder he's called Sir Softy. They're not done yet and are already coming back for more taxes.
Well, the local council, a Lib Dem majority by the way, is seeking to increase council tax by 25%. 25%. Well, it's no wonder, is it? Because the British taxpayer is on the hook 4 times here. You pay hundreds of millions of pounds for refugees, you seemingly pay for some legal migrants who can't speak English to get benefits, and then you pay for foreign criminals to live at His Majesty's pleasure, then you probably pay for their benefits when they come out.
A flat 25% increase is something unheard of. It's beyond ridiculous, and this lot is looking more and more idiotic by the day. Do they think that the British public is stupid? Well, considering the way Starmer keeps on clobbering the working class Brit with tax burdens, he genuinely thinks he can get away with this. Almost every week we see Starmer's Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, or more accurately, Rachel Thieves, use loopholes to raise even more taxes.
In 2017, a research centre estimated that we had 1 million illegal immigrants in the UK. That was a quarter of the whole of Eurpts illegal immigrants. We're a small island. We cannot cope. That was 2017. Imagine how many we've got now. I would say probably 1.5 million, maybe 2 million.
That's 2 million people being fed, settled, and taken care of by Starmer through your money. All the while, Starmer and his cronies enjoy their lavish lives, getting freebies from liberal elites. The whole thing is rotten to its very core, especially since the working class Brit is struggling to make ends meet and the cost of living in this nation is getting higher every day. Labour's budget was an economic disaster, and their entire plan for growth is nothing but a failure and a lie.
We've got a Labour government that many of their MPs signed a letter stopping a deportation flight which had rapists and killers on. Now, what chance have we got now? The Tories were bad, but Labour are so weak and so woke, this is only going to get worse. If you file an asylum claim in this country, there's a way that you can get housed and fed still, not deported. We will house and feed you, even if your asylum claim fails.
Weak, woke, and downright stupid. That's the only way to describe Starmer and the Labour Party. Immigrants, legal or illegal, regardless of the validity of their claims, are let in with no questions asked. And then, Starmer has the audacity to claim that he's going to smash the gangs and stop immigration. This nonsense doesn't just stop there. Those very immigrants are then settled at your expense. That's right, you're paying for one of the major crises that this nation is facing.
Our system is being abused so badly that we have got foreigners that are living abroad that are claiming benefits in this country, and it's coming to millions, tens of millions a year. How stupid are our Home Office or the people, the civil servants, that are granting these?
The system is broken, and Starmer is breaking it further with his socialist woke nonsense. They want to be compassionate and all-caring while making the citizens of this nation suffer. Starmer has made life miserable for everyone, and his #1 crony, Rachel Reeves, who has a dozen scandals of her own, is dishing out one horrible policy after another. Starmer has brought Britain to its knees, and the backlash has been furious.
Because, of course, the Labour Party have been focusing a lot on growth. I have to say, though, many people are saying that the UK is essentially on recession watch. It didn't go well. The economy is shrinking. It's down by 0.1% in October. These are the ONS figures. Let's listen to Rachel Reeves and what she has to say.
But it's not possible to turn around more than a decade of poor economic growth and stagnant living standards in just a few months.
Lies and more lies. That's the Labour way to do it. They have broken every single manifesto pledge that they made. Remember when Starmer so proudly promised that he would make the economy grow? Well, that whole notion is in the bin, right where this Labour government belongs as well. It's not just that we're not getting any growth, they're actively making it worse. People are horrified by this nightmare government, and there might be an actual crash in the economy at this rate.
I don't think the biggest factor is talking down the British economy. I think the fact is that one could spend a century scouring the United Kingdom and struggle to find somebody less suited to be Chancellor of the Exchequer than Rachel Reeves.
Harsh.
We have somebody whose first act,
don't you know?
somebody whose her first budget put a tax on jobs, increased the employer's national insurance contribution, wouldn't even acknowledge that that would have an impact economically.
Starmer handpicked the worst possible candidate for the future of this nation. Given that she lied on her CV, it's no wonder that Sir Keir, the self-proclaimed man of integrity, chose her to be the Chancellor. The whole lot are a bunch of hypocrites that have no idea what they're doing. Labour never had a plan, and they're no better than a bunch of nobodies just winging it. Of course, while they make their blunders, we're the ones who suffer. They promised not to raise national insurance, and Starmer shamelessly used a loophole to raise it anyway.
Everybody was going to then lose their job. This is part of the problem when you have, or a symptom of the fact that you have a Labour cabinet, almost none of whom have ever had serious jobs where they were responsible for second and third order effects, let alone run companies. And so we have a Labour government who are willing to increase taxes on jobs, absolutely no understanding of systems nor second and third order effects.
None of them are fit for the jobs that they have been given, and that only goes to show that we're being governed by idiots. It's like a bunch of toddlers have been given the ultimate power and they won't stop until they've broken everything. It's unclear whether Starmer and his lot are simply incapable of doing anything or actually malicious enough to be doing all of this on purpose. Starmer has a sinister plan, and it's not going to be good for anyone but his trade union paymasters.
You had Keir Starmer this week tweeting out that they were incredibly proud of their target of 1.5 million new homes during the period of this government. Now, by the way, that would be better than any government has ever done. Even if they were to hit that target, by their own numbers, they're importing 2.5 million net new people this year. How is that going to help people get onto the housing ladder? What you need is a surplus of new homes relative to population.
Starmer is so tone deaf that he proudly brags about his own failures. He thinks that the British public is going to keep buying whatever lies he keeps telling. No wonder his approval ratings are at an all-time low. He has lost all credibility, and nobody believes a single word that comes out of his mouth anymore. Sir Keir has proved that he cannot be trusted, and the British public will not make the same mistake twice. They're already demanding his resignation, and it's safe to say that Labour will not be winning another election for a long while.
The problem with just wanging on about growth is unless you can find that magic button that they've hidden somewhere in the Treasury that says growth and just work out how you can just hit it, you actually need to have some policies and some plan to do so. And the reason why they've been talking about growth, and it's a kind of traditional right wing of the Labour Party thing to do, is to avoid talking about redistribution. Because if you say the economy is growing, therefore we don't need to talk about...
That has been Starmer's evil plan from the very beginning. His ideological socialist bent had been clear from the very start. Starmer's real goal is to just keep increasing the taxes till the liberal elites are satisfied with the outrageous amounts of damage that they're doing to the economy. They hate the rich and will do everything that they can to further their agenda. Of course, Starmer fails to account for the consequences of his idiotic actions. As a result of all this, the working class Brits are the ones who end up getting crushed.
Which is incredibly mobile. Many people who have the option of leaving the United Kingdom, sadly, are choosing to do so at alarming pace. We have a brain drain of unprecedented scale going on as we speak. All of these things are storing up.
The people that Starmer is targeting are rich enough to simply leave. And as they leave this country, they take their investment and businesses with them. A huge chunk of the total tax is paid by these rich people, and without them, the economy is struggling. As for those of us who can't leave, we'll be forced to tolerate this government till the end of the term, or sooner, assuming that the people decide to get rid of them. That might be sooner than we think, since the farmers' strikes, the petition for a new election, and the overall pressure is mounting up. Of course, Rishi Sunak warned us all that this would happen.
That the Prime Minister and the Chancellor have not been straight with the British people. Time and again, we Conservatives warned Labour would tax, borrow and spend far beyond what they were telling the country. And time and again, they denied they had such plans.
Rishi Sunak knew that Starmer and his cronies were lying to everyone, and yet we didn't listen. The British public gave Starmer a chance and he bottled it. The dozens of pledges and promises that he made, especially the one to not raise taxes, turned out to be absolute lies. It only goes to show that Starmer, along with this entire government, are a bunch of frauds.
Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, today's budget sees the fiscal rules fiddled. Borrowing increased by billions of pounds. Inflation-busting handouts for the trade unions. Britain's poorest pensioners. Britain's poorest. Order!
How shameless and appalling is it that Starmer was sitting there, laughing while being exposed to be a greedy cash grab? Make no mistake, they knew exactly what they were doing when they increased the taxes and tampered with the borrowing rules. Their whole plan was to just shovel money into the public sector, even if it meant plunging the nation into huge levels of debt.
Britain's poorest pensioners squeezed, welfare spending out of control, and a spree of tax rises they promised the working people of this country they would not do. National insurance, up. Capital gains tax, up. Inheritance tax, up. Energy taxes, up. Business rates, up. First-time buyer stamp duty, up. Pensions tax, up. They have fiddled the figures.
The poor and the working class people have been absolutely ruined by this government. Rishi Sunak and his party were spot on about Labour's plans, and we're seeing it all unfold in real time now. The nation is in decline and literally no demographic has been spared. There's a furious backlash from the farmers that are striking against this government. The pensioners despise Starmer for leaving them to freeze, and everyone else is outraged over all the broken promises. Sunak even exposed Labour's biggest lie that they've ever told to the public.
Today's situation is a world away from the genuinely bleak legacy that we Conservatives inherited from the last Labour government. Borrowing. The Chancellor forgot to point out, borrowing £1 in every 4 that they spent. Debt rising every year and unemployment at 8%.
Remember how Starmer whined about the state of the country? It was all a lie, and they've been proven to be liars by many independent institutes now. There was no £22 billion black hole, and Starmer was only using it as a made-up excuse. The supposed horrible state of the nation that they inherited from the Tories was exaggerated to cover up their own schemes. The people fell for it once, they won't fall for it again. In fact, we're already seeing change in the right direction.
As the Bank of England's former chief economist has said, Labour's approach has generated fear and foreboding and uncertainty amongst consumers, businesses and investors. The rhetoric of this Chancellor and this Prime Minister damaging the British economy for political purposes.
Rachel Reeves doesn't know the second thing about being an economist, so take it from someone who's actually qualified. It's not just Labour's policies that have scared away businesses, it's their whiny attitude too. Who would invest in a nation whose government can't stop throwing temper tantrums over non-existent black holes? Starmer has permanently damaged this nation's reputation and economy for his own political schemes, and the people will not forgive him for it.
You only need to look at the facts to see that the Chancellor's claims about her economic inheritance are nonsense. Labour inherited an economy with inflation back at its 2% target, mortgage rates mortgage rates being cut and unemployment low. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, when we left office, the United Kingdom was the fastest growing advanced economy in the world.
Starmer lies, but the data does not. It is undeniable that we had the fastest growing economy in the G7 under the last government. Sure, the Tories had their fair share of mistakes, but at least they never lied to us about it. Labour has lost all trust, and there's petitions with millions of signatures that are demanding their removal. Britain deserves better than this idiotic lot, and the only way to get rid of this useless bunch is to demand accountability. That is your fundamental right, and can help us achieve that by liking this video and subscribing to the channel.